So my name's Rosanna. I'd like to welcome you to the East End Women's Museum illustration workshop, which is going to be led by illustrator Elena. Wave Elena, there we go. And the East End Women's Museum, for those who don't know, seeks to record, research, share and celebrate the stories of East London women, past and present. And it's the only dedicated women's museum in England, and we're soon going to have a permanent home in Barking. So more news about that later. So for this project, we worked with 6 of our museum volunteers to research some of the wonderful women of Newham who worked in the shops and factories around Canning Town and Silvertown. And then Elena then used this research to illustrate 2 walking trail maps, which look a bit like this. You can see that. So these are available to download from the Newham Heritage Festival month website, and I'm going to pop the link in the chat box at the end. Or if you're local to Canning Town Library, you can pick up a physical copy. So there's one for Canning Town and there's one for Silvertown as well, with some family activities. So for today's workshop, you're going to need pen, paper, paintbrush and a cup of cold coffee, a mirror if you'd like to do a self-portrait, or you can stare at yourself in the videos as we've been doing for the past 18 months, or a family friend that you might want to paint. And I'm going to introduce 3 of the East End women that we became interested by now and show you Elena's interpretation that went into our trail. And then I'll hand over to Elena to teach you how to create your own portrait. So if I share my screen, wonderful. So our project was called The Wonderful Women of Newham. And this is one of our wonderful women. So Janet Keeler, she ran a sweet shop and produced jams in Dundee. And the legend goes that her son was on a cargo ship that got delayed. And when the Seville oranges arrived to her, they were very, very ripe and she had to do something with them. So she made marmalade, which was already in practice in Dundee and other areas. But her little twist was adding the thin strips of rind into it, which made it more spreadable. So therefore it became everyone's favourite breakfast item. And after sugar tax was abolished, her family opened a factory here in Silvertown in 1888, employing 260 people, and it was completely gutted by the Silvertown explosion. Janet is said to be the creator of the Dundee cake. This is going to make you hungry, I'm sorry. And Paddington 2 features the marmalade-loving Paddington Bear, and it was filmed in Silvertown. So if you go on our tour, you can see the remains of the factory gate at Tay Wharf, and that's on our Silvertown trail. And you can see Elena's portrait of Janet there. Now, Edna Henry is one of the first Black women to work at Tate & Lyle Sugars. And when she was passed over for a promotion, she refused to take that line down and she demanded that the managers reconsider, which they did. And she so impressed the other girls that they made her the union shop steward. She became an expert in industrial law so that the managers couldn't take advantage of the girls' lack of education. And she actually became the union rep for the whole factory. They wanted to promote her to supervisor, but she turned it down because she thought it would prevent her representing the girls' interests, saying, money don't mean a thing to me, principles do. And you can see the Tate & Lyle factory on the town tour. So we couldn't find any photographs of Edna. So that is Elena's interpretation based on a few of the factory photos we did manage to find. So what we think she might have looked like. And Daisy Parsons, for those of you that are local to the East End, you'll probably know her. She was born in 1890 to a cleaner mother, a jeweller father, and she left school very, very early, age 14, to work at Carreras Tobacco Company. And here she became really involved in the trade union movement. She was fighting for fair pay, safe working conditions, and she was part of the Women's Social and Political Union with some famous names that you might have heard of, suffragettes like Minnie Baldock and Sylvia Pankhurst. And she was part of the deputation to get the women's suffrage, but actually when they did get it in 1918, she couldn't vote because she was still under 30. But it didn't stop her. She set up a mother and child welfare centre in the First World War, and she helped evacuate local children in the Second World War. She's described as assertive and persuasive, which I think are wonderful terms. And she became West Ham's first female mayor in 1936 and was awarded an Emmy in 1951. So you can see Elena's interpretation of Daisy there with her tricorn hat, which she would have worn as mayor. And her memorial garden, which is in Canning Town, is the last stop of the Canning Town Trail. So I just wanted to show off some of Elena's work because I knew she wasn't going to do it. So I'm going to hand over to Elena now. So if you go to find Elena on the screen, she's actually got 2 cameras set up. So if you hover over Elena's 2 videos, there's 3 little dots, and if you click on those and press pin, those will come up at the start, and when she's speaking, you'll be able to see her 2 screens. So she's got one of her lovely face and then one of looking down on the table so that you can see what she's doing. So I'm going to stop now and hand over to Elena.
Yeah, so hi everyone and welcome to the workshop. Thank you very much for coming. In this workshop, I'm going to show you how to make a portrait or a self-portrait. We are going to be using coffee, which is one of my favorite inks, actually, because it has this perfect warm brown color. And I used it to make this map. So all these edges over here, they are all made with coffee. And I really like this media. It's very forgiving and a good one to make drawings with. So I wonder, have anyone drawn any portraits before? Anyone wanna raise your hand?
Long time ago.
Long time ago, we got done. That's good. Okay, so it could look a little bit daunting if how do you draw a portrait like this? But just like anything, if you break it into steps, you can make it, and it's not very complicated when you break it into steps. So, I like to think about drawing like sculpting from a big piece of marble. So imagine if you have like a very big piece of marble in front of you and you need to make a sculpture out of it. So what would be the first thing? What do you guys think if you have like a massive square piece of marble? Any ideas? Okay, I'm gonna help you out. So first step is to chop off the big slices of marble to make it like roughly the shape that you wanted your sculpture to look like. So that's what we are going to start with our drawing. So if you have your piece of paper in front of you, your white paper, and you have like either your model or you have a mirror somewhere, just have a good look into your model. And you will see that actually your face looks a little bit like an oval. And then it connects straight lines into your neck and shoulders, and like, again, slightly diagonal line like this. So we are starting with the most simple geometric shapes. And that is exactly like chopping off big chunks of marble. So this is like, imagine like your paper is like your piece of marble, and you just chopped off some pieces of it, and you have something a bit more simplified, and then we will be working into details. So give me a wave if you finished, and then we can move on slowly to next steps. Is not the first step, is the easy step. Yeah, and it makes it much more easy when you try to simplify everything into most basic geometric shapes. Shall we move on to the next step? Is anyone finished? Yeah? Okay, we can move on to the next step. And basically, in the next step, so I'm showing the 2 steps together. We are working into more details. So we are working into more details. Have a look at your model again. Do you see what kind of hair does the model have? You may add some ears. and like some kind of like close, like just roughly, don't think too much, because we will be working on it more and more, and eventually we will change everything step by step. And when you do that, draw like a middle line right in the, find glasses hard. To draw glasses, you mean?
Yeah, I find it really hard to draw my glasses.
Okay. Well, don't think about the details. That's the thing. That's the main trick. Don't think about the details just yet. Think about general shapes. Remember, we have a big marble and we're chopping pieces off and working into details step by step. So don't worry about details, because it could be overwhelming if you think about everything at the same time. So just make like a general shape, like have a look at your model, maybe add some hair, like how the model is wearing their hair. And then we're going to work on the proportions, which will make it much easier later to draw your eyes and nose and so on. So when you draw your hair and a little bit of like maybe some clothes and so on, let's draw like the middle line, and then divide your face horizontally into 3 roughly equal parts. The top part might be a little bit shorter because part of it could be covered with hair, but the rest is like 3 roughly equal parts. You don't need to use a ruler or anything like that. Just make like a roughly equal parts by using your eyes. Okay, and when you are finished, maybe you can give me a wave, or maybe you can say, okay, we can move on. And then when enough people are finished, we can move on to the next steps.
So are we doing the proportion lines now as well in this step?
Yes, we are starting to do some of them. I'm not gonna show you all of them, but it will make it much easier when we will draw like eyes and nose and so on. It seems a bit counterintuitive, but it makes it easier in the end. And then, because you might draw like a very beautiful eye, but then you might draw the other eye slightly bigger, and then you have to delete your beautiful eye. So to make it easier, it's just best to kind of first just make like a general shape, and then work into detail. And this way you won't need to delete anything and repeat something again, and it saves works in the end. It's just on organizing, if you like to think it that way. So if you guys are finished, I see people are still working, but I'm not sure how is everyone doing. I think some of you are finished. If someone needs any help or have any question, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask me a question. Okay. Okay, so next step, we're going to draw another line slightly lower than our top line, slightly lower, which is going to be our eye axis. So as you see in this drawing over here, just another horizontal line slightly below. And when you do that, divide it into 3 parts, or like think about what will be the size of the eye and divide it into 3 parts that are roughly similar size. And that's one of the main proportions. There is the same size in the middle between the 2 eyes. So it makes it very easy when you use this proportion to draw eyes at a later stage. And when you finish that, you can draw a little line where you're going to place your mouth. So if you put that line, it's going to be easier later to draw the lips and the mouth. And then everyone's finished. So this is like a very short one. I think people are going to be finished very quickly. We can move on into drawing a face features into the spaces that we made in our drawing. So you can basically, these three parts are, one is the forehead, one is the space between your eyebrows and nose, and the last one is where, like between the nose and the chin. And you can just draw like your mouth over here, eyes, and so on. And if anyone have any question, please ask me. I can also show you how to draw an eye if you would like, or anything that you struggle with. So yeah, just work on the making the details. I made my drawing very dark. I pressed my pencil really, really hard. But you can also use make it very gentle, because in the we will use coffee in the end anyway. So you might want to erase your pencil a little bit if it's too dark, or you can just go like very softly. So you don't need to use eraser form. So is everyone, how is everyone getting on?
Fine.
Just concentrating.
Yeah. It's okay, you can have enough time. Thank you for commenting. We can have as much time as you like. I'm not gonna jump to the next steps.
Elena, while people are talking, I'm interested to know how you got into illustrating.
I always liked art from when I was very, very young. And I have been studying art for 16 years now, very seriously. And I had like a very academic training, and I learned how to draw anything like people and buildings and anything like that. I got into illustration slightly later, after I graduated university. I basically got very much into working with community and making workshops for children and for adults and for people from mixed, like cross generational workshops. And during the coronavirus outbreak, I started designing maps, and this was how I was making the living during the coronavirus time. Yeah, and I'm very passionate about history, especially working class history. And I really like to kind of bring it out into the light and tell the stories of women, tell the stories of, you know, people that sometimes don't have as much of voice. So yeah, it's like, so I combine kind of these two things, the art part, but also the community side. And this is how I got into map making, I guess.
Oh, it sounds like the East End Women's Museum project was perfect for you, all that combination of history and community and your illustrative work.
Yeah, it was. So basically, I contacted the museum. I wrote them an email, like I asked, I wanted to make a project about women. I knew a couple of stories that I came across earlier about Eleanor Marx and Sugar Girls, because I used to live in Silvertown. And I just kind of wrote them an email, and they were interested, thankfully. And then they wrote this project, and it was very nice that they were successful. So we got to do this project together and find some more stories and make the maps that people can use and explore their neighborhood.
Brilliant. Well, I'm glad it all came together because it's a fantastic trail. It's beautifully written and illustrated.
So whenever you guys are finished and you want to move on, let me know. Otherwise, take your time. It's totally okay to take more time. I'm just gonna have a look at the chat to make sure everyone's okay. Where can we see these maps? Oh, can we post some website?
Oh, Rosanna's there. She's done it.
Okay, perfect. Just okay. So I see someone is finished with the face, but I think a lot of you still working. I can see still drawing.
Yes, the nose is tricky, isn't it?
Would you like me to show you how to draw the nose?
Yeah, that would be good. Thanks.
Okay.
Actually, I think I'm actually drawing your illustration. You're showing those. Is that you?
Yeah.
I think I'm actually drawing you. I can't see you properly.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, that's okay. The other thing is, if it looks a little bit like this illustration, don't worry too much. I mean, sometimes people are so perfectionist, they want to get everything perfect straight away, but it doesn't matter. And if it comes out a little bit different than your model, just don't worry about it. And
Oh, it will.
yeah, the thing is, a lot of people, they don't like to try any new things, and you're trying something new. Most of you are doing this for the first time, so you should already be positive about it and be happy about it. Okay, I'm going to show you the nose. The nose should be fitting around this area. It has it's a symmetric shape. It has nostrils on each side and so it's like, yeah, two bendy shapes like this on each side, two kind of different bendy shapes on that side, and then there's a long line going along this way. And then if you don't like something, you can modify it. Usually the nostrils are from the usually you cannot see them very much, you just see them a little bit. So you might want to just kind of draw like a round shape here, like this. This is like the most simple nose I can think. Is it helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, to be honest, I could spend days probably teaching you each of these parts, like eyes or nose. That's what I did when I was studying that. Because there is so many things in there. But for now, we want to focus just on the main proportions and draw the face without going into too much fuss about it, because it's a big work. learning academic drawing is just, it's crazy. When I was going to learn academic drawing and I was very creative, and I used to hate it so much because it's like maths and I don't like maths. You probably can see this a little bit here as well, that you need those lines to make it perfect. It's like organizing everything. So I was not like organized as a kid when I started drawing. But then later on I could see that this is actually very useful.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yes, you know, I did art. I'm an art teacher, so I know how to draw. So I'm not starting from the beginning. And I finished the sketching. So I don't know if it's possible to start with the coffee, or if you prefer me to wait until you explain how to use it.
I think there is a couple of people finished, so I'm gonna keep this one on the side and people can look at it, but we can move on to the next step. So for the next step, I don't know, some people might have one cup of coffee, and some people might have two slightly different one coffee that's very strong and one slightly less strong. So let's start with, basically we will start with the strongest lines. And if you take like a thin paintbrush and go over your drawing, so go over all these lines, but not the proportion lines, leave those alone. If you need, you can also delete them a tiny bit, because if you pressed your pencil very hard, it might be easier to delete your lines now than after you use coffee. And basically we are just going to go over your lines, with starting with the darkest color. So have a good look into your model and look to see which color is the darkest. Maybe your model has dark hair, so that you can color your hair dark. Then generally the darkest shadows on the face are under the nose, under the eyebrows, the top lip, and a little shadow underneath your bottom lip. And there is also a very dark shadow going under your chin. And then, of course, if you're wearing like dark clothes, you might want to color the clothes in dark color. So this is all about observing and looking into your model. And yeah, let's start with the darkest color, and then we might use some other color after.
Sorry, Elena, you know, I prepare the coffee and I try on a piece of paper, and it's not really dark. So is it possible to mix a little bit with watercolors for get like darker tones?
Yes, you can try that. Normally, if I want my coffee darker, I usually just boil it a little bit on the stove, so it evaporates and becomes darker. But you can try watercolors, of course. Sometimes I mix it with ink. In this map that I made, I also mixed colors and I used a bit of ink. Not here, but yeah, it does mix nicely with ink or watercolors, so you can definitely give it a go.
Okay, great, thanks.
So this portrait I made I tried to dress a little bit like the sugar girl. I was trying to see some pictures of sugar girls and how they're dressed, and I tried to put like a scarf on top of my head that looked a bit like these women that they like. That was their work uniform. So I think a lot of people are kind of finished. Yes, you can go over a couple of times. You can gently tap with the paintbrush to make it slightly darker. Maybe I'm going to just work on this image here at the same time, so you guys can see. I started this one, but I didn't finish.
Elena, someone has asked, what brand of coffee are you using? It's a gorgeous brown shade. Theirs is very yellowy.
I use Lavazza and I brew it on the stove top. But I have used, actually, best coffee that I tried is instant coffee. So the cheapest instant coffee works best. Is anyone with instant coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, instant coffee is the best. And you can make it as strong as you like without any fuss. So yeah, it's good to have some instant coffee on the side.
Yeah, I've just put an extra teaspoon of coffee in and it's definitely made it darker.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. And then if you have a very dark coffee, you can also just make it lighter. Oh, filter coffee. Yeah, filter coffee. It's better if you boil it on the stove after. It will become darker, and it does evaporate very quickly. So I would try that. Yeah, filter coffee. It makes amazing coffee. I love filter coffee, but it's not very dark. And then when you're done with your darkest shadows and darkest parts of the picture, you can also make lighter shadows or background. If you put a background, like I'm going to do now, your drawing is going to pop into front. So like if you just go over like this, And then you can make layers of it as well. So like if you make one layer, but after drawing everything else, you want it darker, just cover it once again with paint.
Elena, what paper are you using? My paper is very thin. I should have got a thicker paper.
I got it from pawn shop.
Wow. Is it copy paper?
It's just card from pawn shop, basically. This is where I get supplies when I make classes for children. It's really good. It's just card.
Oh, it's card you're using?
Yeah, it's card, but it's, you know, pawn shop card.
That's a good tip. Oh, someone said Wilco is good. I love Wilco.
Yeah, there is some really good art shops. Definitely. Great Art is a very good art shop that is not too expensive. Have lots of offers.
What was the name of that?
Great Art.
Where's that?
They have lots of shops.
Oh, okay.
I was also thinking about supporting local shops. So East London Graphics on Wood Grange Road, Upton Lane. That's good to go into locally because, you know, it's our only art shop, and if we don't support it, it's quite likely to go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't you just love going to the art shop? At least I really do. I feel like, oh, there's so many opportunities. I can make this, I can make that. It's much nicer than online. Yeah, and just kind of like layer after layer, you can make some of the colors different tonality. And it's very nice when you have a drawing to have a variety of different intensity color. So try to leave some white bits in your drawing, as well as middle tone and very dark color as well. So then your drawing will be interesting to look at. And then another trick that I personally quite like for making backgrounds is splashing color. Sometimes you might need to cover some of the drawing, but you can like splash it a little bit and create like interesting background. Okay, this paintbrush is a little bit difficult. Kids really like this one when I show them. They splash it everywhere, on the tables, on themselves. And coffee is very forgiving as well. If you add some color to somewhere that you don't want to add it, you can use a bit of tissue and clean it. So like if you splash it somewhere you don't like, you can just clean it very quickly and it's gonna be gone. If you use watercolor or ink, it's just gonna stain forever. But if you use coffee, you can take it out. So it's very forgiving. And when you draw portraits, it's very nice to use coffee because of its warm brown color. If you use black ink and you get like this gray portrait, it just doesn't look the same, doesn't look as nice. It's nice to use warm colors when you draw a person. So I really enjoy coffee for that sort of a reason. Also, you can use it to make like very aged effects. If you want to make like a pirate map, for example, and you want it to look old, You can use coffee to do that. This is kind of not like my best, but I'm enjoying it, and that's the most important thing. And there is also lots of other things that you can draw with. For example, beetroot. You can cut a beetroot in half and stamp it on the paper, and it makes round shapes. There is also lots of plants as well that can be used for drawing. So, natural dyes, no plastic. You can do lots of nice things. This is how the artists used to do things back in the day. They would collect like minerals, grind them together, mix them with binding materials, and each paint has a different binding material. Oil paint uses sesame oil. No, not sesame, linseed oil. Tempera is mixed with egg. Watercolor is mixed with honey.
Also, can I say something as well?
Sure.
A tea bag. I was doing some work for a show, and I wanted to have the effect of a vintage paper. I don't drink coffee anyway, but I had a lot of rooibos tea, so I kind of blotted rooibos tea because it really stained the paper, and that was really, really interesting as well. You can stab your tea bags before you throw them away, or before you put them in the compost on your paper, and that stains the paper.
Nice one, rooibos. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, go for it. It's really lovely, and it stains very, very nicely.
Does it make like a brown color, or is it like reddish brown?
Kind of reddish brownish, I would say. Yes, and then and then when it dries, it kind of curls. So it becomes even more vintage looking. So it's just actually quite nice. And then you can scan it as well. Because I was actually writing a letter, and I wanted the letter to be vintage. So what I did, I dyed my paper, just a very plain photocopy paper. And then I had my text and my photo in it. And then I kind of dumped I blocked it with my dampish, a tea bag. Then I crinkled it, and then I scanned it. So when it came out, it had all these crinkles, and then the letters were a little bit kind of, you couldn't read them very well, because it's like I wanted to have a vintage look. So a tea bag is a good idea, and also Earl Grey, and also, to be honest with you, a kind of Builder's tea as well, because tea stains. But I really like rooibos, because obviously I don't drink caffeinated teas. You see, that's why I had rooibos in hand. But yeah, it's a very nice staining, method for a paper.
Nice one. I'm gonna definitely try it.
Go for it.
That's a good tip. And I also really like rooibos tea, but somehow I didn't think it would be like dark enough paint, because it's not a dark tea.
It's true, but then the more you dump it, the darker it becomes. And of course, it all depends how dark you want it to be, because obviously I can see now from your coffee that you want it quite dark. So, the more you steep the tea as well. So yeah, try just extension to the idea.
Mm.
Elena, we've got about 10 minutes left of the workshop. It's gone so quickly. I can't believe it's gone so quickly, but it would be lovely to see some people's work. If you don't want to show yourself, you could hold your picture in front of you. But yeah, it would be lovely to see some people's work. Should we do that?
Yeah, sounds good. I would love to see people's work as well.
Should we hold our work up? Is everyone brave enough to do that? Oh,
I think
yeah.
that, oh, wow, that is amazing. Wow, that is so good. Wow, you guys are so good.
Everyone's managed to do so much work in such a short space of time. Cool.
Wow, excellent. Annie, I love your one so much.
I'm going to take a screenshot if anyone else wants to take a screenshot.
Oh, wow, absolutely amazing. Experimental. Beautiful work.
Just before everyone heads off as well, there's a hashtag Newham Heritage Month. So if you want to pop your portrait up on social media, then tag that, and then you can see other people's as well. And tomorrow evening we're running a virtual tour of Silvertown. So we partnered with Katie from Look Up London. So she's going to take us on a Zoom tour of the Silvertown trail that we've done. So you can explore Silvertown from the comfort of your own home. And if you'd like to register for free, I'll pop the link in the chat box. And also the East End Women's Museum is currently designing the new museum space, and they're going to be holding a number of consultation events in the next few months ahead of its opening in 2022. So sign up to the museum newsletter, follow on Twitter or Facebook to hear more about the opening and how you can get involved in the consultations, because we would love to have your thoughts on that as well. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Elena, this very calming, lovely workshop. I hope you all enjoyed it.